Hey, family. Hope you're having a good day today. Uh, well, today we want to talk about what I thought was an excellent message from Pastor Terry on April 11, called "Imperfect Faith." It is, and that title, right? That's a great title, very provocative title. Loved it, and he covered in his message so much about what goes into believing God to do something, and believing and asking God for a miracle, and how he talked about Jesus's faith being perfect, but the disciples' faith and ours being imperfect, and all the challenges that brings. Anyway, I just thought it was a great message, and I wanted to. I felt like it really warranted us going a little deeper into our own experiences. Each of us has a variety of experiences in your relationship with God where you needed God to come through for you, and you believed for God to come through for you, and you asked God to do something that was beyond you. And we've all got a story where God came through for us, or God healed us, or God provided for us, or a story where it was a hard time and it didn't seem like anything we did, including praying, seemed to work. And we as humans, you know we find comfort in a formula. We want to be able to rely on 2 plus 2 equals 4. And if I put in the right value, the right number, and I do the steps, then, if I follow those how to, Faith for Dummies book, and do the things that I'm told to do, then I can expect this result the same way every time, all the time. But sadly, it just doesn't seem to work out like that with God, does it? I find that God is resistant to many formulas, and yet Jesus, and in his teachings in the Gospels, he encourages us. He says, "Where two or three are gathered together, there I am in the midst. If any two would come together and agree as touching anything as one, then it will be done for you. If you ask of my will, and it's going to be done." So, he seems to give some formulas, doesn't he? However, there are so many factors involved in whether or not a prayer gets answered in the way that we want it to. I love all of the different examples of people who came to Jesus and asked him to do something for them, like the centurion. He came to Jesus and exhibited to Jesus great faith. He says, "You don't even have to come find and be in the same room with my servant. Just say the word, and I believe that it will be done." And Jesus said, "I haven't found such great faith, right, in Israel." So he was impressed by the level of faith. So there are clearly levels of faith. Often he chided the disciples for having so little faith. "Oh, you have little faith." So there can be great faith, there can be little faith. And Jesus is obviously telling his disciples that, "Hey guys, I need y'all not to have little faith. I need y'all to have better, greater, more faith. I need you to grow in your faith." Well, that lets us know that it's possible to grow in our faith. Especially if you think of the spiritual gift of faith, which that's a spiritual gift. So that gift of faith, that's something I think of as kind of separate from what we can all grow in all the time, right? But this gift of faith, it could be seen in over a period of time, where if you go through a hard time and you don't lose your faith in God, then that, I believe, that can be a gift of faith given by the Holy Spirit to help maintain you and sustain you through a difficult time. But also, the gift of faith can be in a moment where I believe I just have this greater sense of faith and knowing that God's going to do something in this moment than I ever have before, or than I usually would. And I believe that comes from the Holy Spirit. That is a gift of faith in the moment. There are instances in the Bible where either one of the apostles or Jesus would see someone and then see that there was faith in that person. It's like you can recognize faith sometimes, even without someone like the centurion saying something. I also think of the great faith of the bleeding woman. That's a go-to passage for me. where she had such persistence and she was going to fight through the crowd. She believed that if I could touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. And it didn't seem like Jesus was even paying her any attention. It's like he was focused on someone else, but her faith drew that power from Jesus. But then I also think of the father who brought his child to Jesus, possessed by a demon, and would throw the child into the fire. And he said that I believe. Jesus said all things are possible to him who believes. All right, this is like Jesus's faith primer. The father says, "Hey, can you do something for my kid?" And Jesus says, "Well, all things are possible if you believe." And then their dad's response, I think, is precious. He says, "I believe. Help my unbelief." He admits in that moment to Jesus, face to face, that I have a mixture in my heart of faith and doubt. And I love that Jesus basically says, "Hey, well, I can work with that." And then Jesus also says that if all you need is the amount of faith that's in a mustard seed. So, well, seeing all of this, what are we to think? How are we to go about it, right? Are we supposed to grow in our faith, or do we need to believe for the gift of faith, or does all we need is just the little faith of a mustard seed? Well, I think that God intentionally has resisted being put into a formula of faith. And the purpose of that is to keep us ever seeking, always hungry and thirsty after him, and always praying and seeking him for more. And that process is going to help us grow our faith, because the closer we are to him, the more we're going to believe in him and for him to do great things. So tonight I want to talk about some examples, some stories from your life. We want to hear from your life about stories where you had high faith and, man, boom, God came through. We also want to hear where it was a rough time and it seemed that everything you tried, nothing worked, and it seemed like a difficult season where you didn't get the answer you were looking for. I'd love to hear about your faith and what you learned about faith in those seasons, because I think God's always teaching us through on top of mountains and go walking through valleys. He is always teaching us, and he's always presenting us with opportunities to grow our faith in him. Let's talk about what that has looked like in your life and mine this evening.